Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome back. Now we're going to have a look at Ihram, which is another obligatory element, the sanctified state. Now Ihram, the understanding of Ihram is that once you're in that state, everything that was allowed for you outside of that state is no longer allowed for you, or it's allowed for you in, under restrictions within that state. And that state doesn't end from you until you've completed the reason it was worn for, that you entered yourself. It was until you've completed the reason that you entered into that state for. The clothing is just a part of that state, and that is namely to perform the greater pilgrimage or the lesser pilgrimage. It is worn and intended at one of the designated boundaries. So what are the boundaries? First of all, we need to understand that there are three categories here. The first category is the precinct, the holy precinct. Most of Mecca, the city of Mecca, covers that now. In the past, it would extend outside of Mecca. The markings would extend outside of Mecca. But because Mecca has grown over the centuries, Mecca mostly comes inside that now. There are still parts of Mecca towards the outskirts that are outside. For example, Arafah still sits outside the boundary. Masjid al-Aisha is on the boundary. So if you want to do Umrah again, that's why you go there, and then you put your Ihram on, and then you make your intention, your Talbiyah, and then you come back and do your Umrah. This is a ruling that applies for people. The people that live in this area come under a certain ruling, right? The people that come under the precinct boundary. This was set by Rasulullah. Then the second boundary is the designated boundary, where the miqats are. And those are for people from all over the world who are coming towards Mecca to perform the pilgrimage. And this is an area where they have to stop, wear their ihram, make their intention, and then march on towards Mecca with the intention of the greater or the lesser pilgrimage. So this is the second boundary. And if we look at the picture here, all around Mecca. So we have in the north, next to Medina, we have Dhul Hulayfa. So the people from Mecca, Medina, and by extension, this is everybody from the north. So in the olden days, there were only a few roads in the desert like this. And people from those parts of the world would use these roads. So for example, everybody coming from, say, Turkey or Europe or from Syria and Jordan and those areas would come down this road. And when they would get to Dhul Hulayfa, they would make their intention, wear the ihram, recite the talbiyah, and then come on towards Mecca. The people from the west, which is from the northeast, from Iraq and those areas, the ancient road actually still exists. That was made by the mother of Harun al-Rashid, if I'm not mistaken. It still exists, the old pilgrim road. And then they come that way. And then obviously you've got the miqat from the south, which is I can never get this word out, Yalamlam. The people from Yemen, Jazan, and the southern regions of Saudi Arabia, they would come up this road. So if you're flying over this route, as people do today, they normally announce before you fly over that anybody wishing to perform the Umrah should don the Ihram now and make their niyyah, because now you are entering this territory, the designated miqats areas, and you're within that area. So as you can see, Mecca sits in the middle, and these areas completely cover Mecca from all sides, and Jeddah sits inside this area. So anybody from Jeddah wishing to do Umrah would just wear his clothes from Jeddah, the ihram, and then just make his way to Mecca. It's a 45-minute ride, and then perform his Umrah, because he happens to fall conveniently within this area. So, and then we have outside this area. So anybody outside this area, so if you happen to be just outside, if you happen to be outside Medina, for example, towards the north, you're outside of the boundary. So whether you're 10 miles outside the boundary or 10,000 miles outside the boundary, so whether you're in Alaska, whether you're outside the boundary in the Arabian Peninsula, the same ruling applies for everybody who's outside this area. So they're lumped together, and then we have the people inside the designated area, and then we have people inside of the precinct, which is the demarked area within the greater Mecca area itself. Also, there are three types of Hajj. So depending on the type of Hajj you do, it depends on how many times you need to enter into the state of Ihram. So let's have just a quick cursory look. So we have Hajj al-Ifrad, which you have to make an intention for Hajj only. There's no associated Umrah with that. It's Hajj only. Then you have the ritual is for Hajj only, and then there's no animal sacrifice is required. And who would do this? We'll talk about this later, but this is one form of Hajj. Then the second one is Hajj Qiran. You intend Umrah and Hajj together. So everything is done in one Ihram cycle. You do not take your Ihram off until you've done the Umrah, and then you've waited and then done the days of Hajj, and then you take it off. So Hajj only rituals of Umrah are merged into the Hajj counterpart. So it's a single Ihram. Animal sacrifice is required. And then we have Tamattu', which is intention for the Umrah and the Hajj separated. So how would this differ from the Qiran? You do the Umrah and then you have a break between the Hajj. So you come out of pilgrim sanctity, and then depending on how much time you've got, then you don it again, and then you perform the Hajj. So it's two separate Ihrams now, and then animal sacrifice is required. So these shall be discussed later on, inshallah. At the moment, this is enough to know about them. So then we go on to what our author says. He says, when one intends to enter the state of pilgrim sanctity, Ihram, at one of the designated boundaries, miqat, plural mawaqit, such as rabigh, he should do the following as they are recommended. Perform the ghusl or the wudu. Obviously, if you're in need of an obligatory bath, then it becomes necessary upon you, becomes fard upon you to perform the obligatory bath. But it's recommended to have a ghusl, a fresh ghusl, or wudu. Trim your nails and moustache, shave your armpits, or pluck the hair from your armpits and the pubic region, put on nice scent and oil, and wear an upper and lower garment. Now, the scent that you put on cannot be put on after you've worn the garment and made the niyyah and started the talbiyah. So this needs to be before, and it's recommended to do that before. You want to smell nice and everything. So before you've actually entered the state, you've had your shower, you've cut your nails, you've shaved wherever you need to shave, removed hair, and then you wear the perfume, right? You can wear oil or French perfumery, or you can wear the traditional essential oils. And before you've made your intention, there's no problem with that. The most preferred garments are those that are new and white. So it's better for you that each time you perform an Umrah for you to wear a new garment. However, it's preferred, but if you didn't do that, it's fine also. Obviously, the garments need to be clean. Clean, there's a difference between pure and clean here. Even if your garments are pure, they may not be clean. They may be slightly soiled. It's recommended to wash them, to keep your garments clean and white. Now, what happens if somebody decides to wear green or another color? Technically, there isn't a problem, but nobody would do that. There's a few reasons why they wouldn't do that. And one of them is it's sunnah to wear the white, and everybody wears white. If you decided to wear another color, if there is absolutely no other garment for you, that's understandable. But if there is a garment, the reason you wouldn't wear white is you draw attention to yourself. In a situation where everybody is focusing on their own worship, their own relationship with their Lord, the last thing that you want to do is to draw attention to yourself and have people talk about you, and then or ask you questions, and then annoyances happen or things like that. So to go with the flow, and it's a sea of white, everybody's dressed the same and is facing their Lord, is just to wear the white. And then praise the 2 rakahs which are sunnah, so 2 cycles of prayer which are sunnah, and then to say, "Oh Allah, verily I desire to perform Hajj, so make it easy for me and accept it for me." So this is a dua you make, and at this point you can make other supplications, and there are supplications available that you can make. He then says the talbiyah immediately after the prayer, while making the intention of Hajj alone if performing ifrad. As we mentioned before, in the 3 types of Hajj, with ifrad it's the Hajj only, which means that you don't need to do the Umrah, you would just go and straight get there for Arafah and then do the Hajj. If however he is performing Qiran, he intends both Hajj and Umrah and says, "Oh Allah, verily I desire to perform Hajj and Umrah, so make the 2 easy for me." Afterwards, he is to recite the talbiyah, ideally 3 times, and he will have then entered the state of pilgrim sanctity. The talbiyah is to say, "Here I am, at your service indeed, all praise, blessings, and the dominion itself are utterly yours, you have no partner. Labbaik, Allahumma labbaik, labbaik, la sharika laka labbaik, innal hamda wa ni'mata laka wal mulk, la sharika lak." This is preferably done 3 times. This is like the opening invocation for the Hajj. Just like you have an opening invocation for your prayer, which is the opening tahrima, the Allahu Akbar, likewise for the Hajj it's this. So once you've worn the ihram with intent of what you're going to do, You recite the opening supplication and then that's it. Now you're in pilgrim sanctity. He should not say less than this form of the talbiyah, yet if he wants to add more, as is recommended, he must say, at your service, at your obedience, all good is in your hands. Hence, once the pilgrim has recited the talbiyah accompanied with an intention of either Hajj or Umrah or both, he has entered the state of pilgrim sanctity, which now means that things that were permissible for him before are no longer permissible, and we'll have a look at what those things are. This state is a condition for the validity of one's actions on the pilgrimage. So not being in this state and just merely doing the rites of Hajj does not mean that you've done a Hajj. You've basically just gone on a tour of the holy sites and you've acted out the actions without actually having performed a valid Hajj. One of the integrals of the Hajj is to be in the state of pilgrim sanctity and not have broken it. If you did an infraction, some infractions you can compensate by giving a sacrifice, and we'll mention that as we go on. So at this point the pilgrim must abstain from the following. So as mentioned, sexual intercourse or speaking about it in front of women, rafath, vulgar speech. So normally some of these things, even when you're out of this state, you don't do these things. Doing them in the state of pilgrim sanctity is far worse. Just like, for example, Ramadan comes and certain sins that were sinful outside, now in Ramadan they're far more sinful. Or you are in the holy precinct in Mecca and certain sins that were bad outside of that area are now worse in that area. So now you're in a state of Ihram. So there are repercussions for doing these sins, right? Immediate repercussions. So using vulgar speech, argumentation. Argumentation is something that's very difficult to avoid at the best of times because of human natures the way we are today. But especially during the Hajj or the Umrah, greater or lesser pilgrimage, where there are thousands upon thousands and millions of people, where you've got a long, arduous journey ahead of you, it's a given that people's tempers are going to flare, argumentation is going to happen, people are going to get angry, and abuse is levied at each other, curses are fired, and the whatnot. Unfortunately, it happens, and you can actually witness this happening when you're there. It's not a good thing, but it does happen. But somebody who's in a state of pilgrim sanctity should really watch out for these things. If somebody has caused you harm, that harm was sent from Allah. Your job is not to retaliate, but your job is to show patience and calm, because Allah is testing you. Allah is testing you. I made this harm come to you. How did you react? Did you react in a way befitting a Muslim, or did you react in a way that was suboptimal, it wasn't befitting you, right? So our job is, when we're there, is at the best of times anyway, whether you're in Ihram or not in Ihram, but especially when you're in Ihram, to be mindful of these things. So do not get into disputations, argumentations, arguments or the like. If somebody has wronged you, harmed you, caused you physical harm, or verbally insulted you or the like, just leave it to Allah. What's your greater purpose for being there? Think about that and just carry on. Acts of disobedience. Right, so that was jidal, and acts of disobedience are ma'asiyah. Acts of disobedience, again, as mentioned before, certain things that you do outside are sinful, and that to do them inside pilgrim sanctity and to do them inside the precinct are far worse in their consequences. So general acts of disobedience are to be avoided, forbidden. Killing land game, including pointing them out or indicating their whereabouts to a hunter. So any form of hunting or killing of land game is forbidden, even if, for example, game went that way and the hunter, Siyad, asked you where did it go and you said, oh, it went that way. You know, that would, you'd incriminate yourself by doing that. Wearing stitched garments. Now, wearing stitched garments here basically refers to wearing your normal clothing here, your normal clothing, because when you're wearing the ihram, you tend to wear garments that you would not really be wearing anywhere else. Yes, you can get away with wearing the futa in your normal life, But to wear it the way it's worn, with the overgarment and then the undergarment and the type of material it is and everything, it's only something that you would wear for the Hajj and Umrah. So what this means here is wearing something other than what you are supposed to be wearing. Because even your Ihram will have some stitching on it somewhere. You'll probably have a logo here or something here. Or you will find some stitching on it. So this is what it refers to. Also, leaving the cuneiform bone on your foot exposed. So this is the foot, right? There's a bone you have here. To leave that bone exposed, so you get special shoes, sandals, that the old flip-flop, ship-shop sandals that you can wear that will allow for that to happen. Many people do not observe this, and they normally end up wearing the normal 10 real sandals that you get, the white ones. They actually cover that bone. So you're supposed to wear flip-flops or sandals that allow for that bone to be exposed. Covering the head for men or the face for both men and women. Men do not cover their head. Men do not cover their face nor their head. Women do not cover their face. However, women can have like a cap or something whereby they put their garment over them and it falls over them like that, where it naturally covers their face. That's okay, and you can have an umbrella to cover your head with. Applying any sort of scent to one's body or clothes. Once you're in pilgrim sanctity, in the state of pilgrim sanctity, you can no longer apply any perfume, no matter how many days go by in that state. You can apply it before, however, shaving or plucking hair is no longer allowed also. If one does commit any of the above, he must pay the appropriate penalty as delineated below, along with other penalties. So this, inshallah, we shall mention when we get to this part. One should recite much talbiyah when changing states, especially in the early morning hours before Fajr, with a raised voice. This is something that's persistently to keep yourself in the zone and to know why you're there, right? And that is the reason you're actually there, to persistently be reciting the talbiyah. You don't need to do it at the top of your voice, where after half an hour you're exhausted and your vocal cords have been exhausted. No, you do it in a slight audible tone, even if it's in a whisper. It's something that you will persistently recite as an act of slavehood. That here I am, oh Lord, here I am, I've left everything for you. The fact that you're there in pilgrim sanctity, you've spent a large amount of money, a chunk of your savings, probably all of your savings to get there, an arduous journey, as an ultimate act of slavehood, right? To go there and do the few rituals, and it entails suffering, and then to go back to your land. It's an act of slavehood, and we're only doing it because we've been commanded, because the actual rites themselves don't really make sense. Right? You circumambulate a few times the holy house, you do the Safa Marwa, and then you spend a night here and a night there, and then you pelt, and that's it, you're out of the state. But your Lord loves that, your Lord wants you to see that, and that's why you do it. And the talbiyah is your witnessing, oh Allah, I am here. I am here. You wanted me, I obeyed you, and I am here. And I seek all good from you, I seek forgiveness from you, and I seek ease for dunya wal akhirah, and all the rest of the du'as. That was to do with the pilgrim sanctity, the Ihram state, which was one of the obligatory elements. Now, inshallah, in the next lesson, we're going to have a look at the actual Hajj from beginning to end. Wa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.